Hello, very good evening. An hour of, well, near enough an hour of sporting chat right here, mostly centering on football with a couple of local legends from different eras that we welcome to the studio this evening. And on social media, I've been billing it as a kind of retro refuge for fans of Sheffield Wednesday and Chesterfield, who at the moment are not having the best of times, and in turn their team's not having the best of times either. But there's also a Sheffield United flavour to the show as well. And by the way, talking about coming on to new things, that title music, I've had a fair bit of feedback about that title music on social media. The good news is there'll be some brand new titles for this show up and running very shortly, with a bit of technical wizardry from my pals here, Phil and Greg. But first of all, to introduce a couple of very familiar faces. Tommy Lee, former Chesterfield goalkeeper, only recently retired, sadly prematurely, but he's very positive attitude, looking ahead with his life. He's got a degree in journalism and broadcasting, so I'm going to have to watch out, certainly, for the future here. And also he's coaching, and he's coaching at Sheffield United's academy, among other places. From a different era, you don't mind me saying that, do you?
No.
No, from a slightly different era, Brian Joicey. Now, Brian I knew way back at the very, very start of my career when he was a striker at Sheffield Wednesday, former Barnsley as well, and still keeps in very close touch with his former teams, and in particular the Owls. Good evening to you, Brian. It's great to see you both in very good health by the look of it.
Just a bit, yes.
Do your best.
Yeah.
Despite what's going on, and you're still a visitor to Hillsborough.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've got 4 grandsons, and they're all obviously Owls. Mm-hmm. And one of them, the older one, Billy, he's crackers. He's Sheffield Wednesday daft.
Yes.
And in fact, he's when was it? On Friday, tomorrow, he goes down to Sheffield Wednesday Academy, and he's involved with that now. So he's doing all right.
He's doing all right. What position does he play in then? Are we talking striker?
Yeah. Unfortunately, yes.
Unfortunately, yes. Well, you had a great record. We'll come on to your record in a minute and what you think of the team now, as we were with Tommy. But Tommy, you're a man of many parts these days, aren't you? Really?
Yeah. I recently undertook a sports writing and broadcasting degree, which I enjoyed. I graduated in September, and it was with a view to finishing football. I hoped I'd be playing a lot longer than I eventually did, but I think it's important as a player. You've got to have another few strings to your bow, definitely.
And you're working at Sheffield United. This is the academy kids, goalkeepers, obviously, specifically.
Yeah, I worked with Matt Duke at Chesterfield for almost 2 seasons, and he left recently to take up a role at Sheffield United, and he was kind enough to give me a call after I retired, and he knew I wanted to maybe look into coaching a little bit, so they offered me a position down there part-time, working with the kids from under 9s up to under 16s, and I'm really enjoying it. It's nice to see another side to the game that I've not been used to, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
So what are you going to be, a journalist or a football coach or manager? Which of the two?
Depends which pays the most.
Or both.
Well, I love football. I think everyone sat on these sofas loves football, and if I can stay in the game in any capacity, then I'll jump at the opportunity. But I think coaching is probably the route I'm going to go down, because I still feel like I've got unfinished business with the game as well.
Yeah, and I've got to say, you're a bit of a hero of mine as well. Having watched a number of your key games, when you've won promotion a couple of times with Chesterfield, you've been to Wembley, of course, as well with the JP Trophy, and that obviously is the club that you're most closely aligned with. Even though you began your career at Manchester United. I
did, yeah. I started at Man United, and then I went to Macclesfield. I had a brief spell at Rochdale, and then I've been at Chesterfield for 10 years. This is my 10th season now, and I can honestly say I'm glad. I did give my career to Chesterfield. I wish it could have gone on longer, but the times that we had, the success that we had, and even the bad times, I enjoyed every minute.
Well over 300 league appearances in total, so Wikipedia says, and I'm sure it's absolutely right.
Yeah, 373 apparently. Yeah.
373, nearly 400 is a better way of putting that. You see, he's a better journalist than me already. he's certainly better at maths than I am. Brian, I've got a message for you, because, 1969 to 71, Coventry City. Sheffield Wednesday 1971 to 76, 48 league goals, I think I'm right in saying, and 145 games. Correct me, please. Am I right?
Altogether, there was 53, I think, goals.
53, including cup goals.
Yeah.
You finished your career with a century.
Yes.
A century of goals, having moved from Sheffield Wednesday to play for Barnsley between 1976 and 1978. Now, there was a rumour, and I checked it out on Tuesday night after Sheffield Wednesday had played Ipswich Town, that Mick McCarthy used to clean your boots.
Yes, that's the best place for him as well. No, he was. He was just one of the young lads that the young lads attached to the boots, 3 or 4 lads, and we should give him some money to clean me boots.
All right, okay, well, I confirmed this with him after the game on, because he was in a good mood.
Of course.
Ipswich had won 2-1. And he said, I've got a message for him. I can't do his accent, but he says, tell him the mini clubman I bought off him has finally clapped out. Tell us about that.
No, I was always dealing with, I still do it, but dealing with cars. And you get inkling of it, somebody...
You're a car dealer to this day.
Well, somebody says, I'm looking for a car. You think, oh, I'm just knowing that might have one for you. And I said, what do you want? He says, oh, a Mini. I says, a Mini? Because he's 6'2", whatever. He's
even bigger than you.
He is bigger. And anyway, after 1 or 2, what about this, what about that? He settled on a little Mini, and I'm pleased to see from 19, what was it? 19.
You were at Barnsley between 76 and 78, and if he's saying it's only just clapped out,
I don't think for 1 minute Nick will get into a Mini now, because he's like he'd be in a Rolls Royce knowing him now.
But you're a great favourite at Barnsley as well. You were with 43 league goals in 93 games, almost 1 in 2. Very, very impressive strike rate. Sheffield Wednesday now, because I saw you most recently after a horrendous home defeat to Birmingham City, and since then I've been back to Hillsborough and seen Wednesday lose again. What do you make of it at the minute?
Horrendous. As a supporter, ex-player, that's in the past, but I think as a supporter, I think it's horrendous. I think it's... I don't know who's got the strings of the club now. I think at one time, Eric Taylor, when I come, he was like that. He was like a tight-fisted,
Well, you mean he had total control of...
Total. And I don't think who's got the control now. Certainly not the manager.
And so why do you think it's drifted so far? Of course, because to give a perspective to this and to be utterly fair, the last 2 seasons, Sheffield Wednesday have been very close to getting promotion after very good seasons.
I think what the board hasn't been. Well, go back a little bit. I think we've talked about this before. I think the managers that we've had lately, the previous one, this
Carlos
one,
and now.
You just go back 2 or 3. They're doing all right, but they've never had sort of the push to get there. But the only time we've had big success at Wednesday is when Trevor Francis, Ron Atkinson, the Jack Taunton.
You mean people of a certain stature?
Yes.
Now, that is a very interesting argument. I'm going to develop that with you in a minute, because I'm just thinking about what you've said, and I think there's a fair amount of truth in it in terms of a big club needing a big personality, if you like.
Bigger than the managers that they've got now, and the managers that we had when I was playing. I don't think they were. I think the Sheffield Wednesday owned them, in so much that they give money to buy players. But I think the Ron Atkinson, especially, he was like he had Wednesday down there with the players, supporters. He was in charge of the whole thing, really. I think he
had
needed
an aura about it.
Yes.
We'll come back to that in a minute, because who is the manager who's had, in your career, I think I probably know the answer, who's had the most aura and the most effect in that way?
Yeah, I mean, I probably have to go with Paul Cook. It'd be a tough choice between John Sheridan and Paul Cook. I think when John Sheridan came in to Chesterfield, he had that aura from the player he was. So we all knew what he did as a player, the qualities he had as a player. So straight away, as a player, you see a man come in like that, and there's instant respect there. Rightly or wrongly, that's where you take the respect from. But I'd probably go with Paul Cook, who was a very good player in his own right.
Oh, midfield player, wonderful.
Probably not as
left foot
as well known as John.
No, but he was a good player.
But yeah, I think Paul Cook is probably the best. You see what he's gone on to do now at Wigan and Portsmouth, and that was because you believed what he was telling you. It could get on your back. It told you when you needed telling. But I think to a man in the 2 seasons we had under Paul Cook, everyone knew the jobs and everyone believed what they were being told.
Right. So he stands out for you. What do you make of the situation currently? We're going to go on to Derek Dooley in a minute, who was manager right at the start of your Hillsborough career. But the situation now is we're all desperately worried. I mean, fighting to stay in the football league, or the EFL as they call it. Do you think they will?
I sincerely hope so, and I think they've got although we're 5 points adrift at the minute, we've still got a great chance, because we play a lot of the teams around us. As we all know, relegation battles, teams pick up points, whereas earlier on in the season they didn't. The pressure's on, and I think it's going to take 11 players every week to perform to the maximum and pick up. It's probably going to take 6 or 7 wins, but knowing Jack like I do,
Jack Lester, yeah.
He'll be demanding from those lads, and I think the players that he brought in the transfer window, they're going to need time to gel. I saw a little bit of that.
There isn't that time, is there?
Well, I saw a little bit of that against Swindon in the last home game. Good win. It wasn't a pretty performance, but it was the exact type of performance you need in a relegation battle. And I think it's probably going to go down to the last day, but I think we'll survive, and I hope we do.
Absolutely, I echo that. Brian, the manager that you had the most affection for, the most respect for in your career, would you say?
Well, it's Derek Dooley. I mean, he bought me for a start. I mean, to be honest, I didn't want to come really. I was like, he went
from Coventry.
No, he went down to see David Clemens. That's when I wanted to see David, and then the manager for Coventry, he called me and he said, about what a bid from you from Sheffield Wednesday. Oh. He said, I don't want you to go, but I just want you to have a chat with him just to see more money for you. Because I was 23 when I went there, and direct into the pro football, and was amateur before that, and I did all right for North Campbell.
That's incredible. You didn't enter pro football until you were 23. I mean, there's a lot of talent out there that doesn't get picked up, isn't there?
Yeah, but I mean, it wouldn't do that now. I mean, no. You'd say you passed it.
Jamie Vardy.
Yeah, but then again, that was a while ago. I mean, you can count on one hand now anybody that's over 17.
So Derek Dooley, we all had great respect for him. I was privileged to know him. You tell us about him from your perspective.
I think what it is, Derek, I mean, I was never the greatest player. I can honestly say that. But I think Derek saw in me a little bit what he had. He didn't mind getting a broken nose, cut on the head, and stood in your. I didn't mind that.
You were fearless.
And I think that's what he wanted at the time. That's what he wanted centre forward to be like. Yeah. And when I came to Wednesday, I started scoring goals, and I mean, it was just a mutual respect, really. I mean, and I think if the manager knows you, I think managers now they don't get into players. They just you're a player for them. They don't know you as a person. I think
Derek did?
Yes,
he did. You got to know people. It's part of the psychology of it. Things went downhill then. Of course, he got sacked on Christmas Eve, which is a notorious and regrettable, highly regrettable incident. Steve Burtonshaw, then Ashurst, and it was going down.
Yes.
Wasn't it? As it did for a period of time. I'm going to show a picture now, and then we'll get on to the managers that we were talking about, the big personalities you think are required to manage Sheffield Wednesday. Here's a throwback for you. The three of you were strikers, left to right there, Brian?
It was like Mick Prendergast, me, and then David Sunley.
David Sunley on the right-hand side. Mick Prendergast was a good player, wasn't he? Tigerish, aggressive.
It was a bit like me, actually. He just got stuck in. And Mick, and me and Mick were up front for a long time, and I think he had my injuries because he had broken legs, broken ankles, he had cartilage, he had this and that. I was just sort of,
You sailed through.
And
he was very unlucky.
He was.
And sadly, no longer with us either. But David Sonley is, as you see from time to time.
He lived in Dronfield, like I
Does
do.
he?
Yeah, and he's retired and just I never seen him that much because I never go into the betting shop. That's where. That's
right. Dronfield. Talk about betting. You've got Ted Hemsley down there, haven't you? Who you'll know, and Kevin Gage. Ex-Sheffield United.
And Len Badger.
And Tony Curry.
Yes.
There's loads of footballers. Per head of population, I think there's more footballers or ex-footballers in Dronfield than anywhere else. Whereabouts do you live?
I'm just up Ecclesall Road, actually, so I'm not too far from Dronfield. But
not such a hotbed, that. No, not such a hotbed.
No.
You made an interesting point just now, and you referred to the managers who've succeeded in modern, if we can call it modern times at Sheffield Wednesday. Big Jack Charlton, Big Ron Atkinson, Trevor Francis, the first £1 million player, high profile.
Yeah. Howard Wilkinson.
Howard Wilkinson was not a big personality, but is in other senses. Now, all of these four have been successful.
Yes. I think they don't technically know. Well, I shouldn't say that really. The chairman, they'll say, obviously they'll try and get them rent your way, the chairman's way of thinking, or by him. I think they bought what they wanted at the time. I don't think I don't think they took any notice of the chairman. I think this is what I want to make the clubs successful.
Is that what's needed now to a certain extent?
Completely.
A big personality manager or a big character?
Look, I wanted, at the time, I wanted Sam Allardyce to come down, because he was out of a job. I wanted him to come down and just sort the whole thing out.
Okay.
I think
Is that because of the size of the club can overwhelm people if they don't have
I think they're just waiting. The Wednesday fans are just waiting for somebody to come down and say, for goodness sake, I nearly
said something else there. It has to be said, though, that the last two managers, Carlos Carvalho and Jos Lukai, they've both managed big clubs abroad. They have managed big clubs abroad.
What is a big club? A big club that that this manager has got up from the fourth division to the third or whatever it is.
From the second tier.
I don't know what sort of fan base have got.
Right. Well, big. But okay. Well, we'll develop this argument or develop this conversation in part two because that's part one flown by. We'll also talk about Jordan Rhodes, to an ex-striker. Rejoin us in 5.